Already?
3.
Hello, welcome to the Uprising. I'm your host, Jennifer Siciliano, and I'm here today with the former state senator, Jeanine Calkin.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, it was kind of a last minute thing, but you were the first person that I thought of calling to come on the air.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yes. Well, my biggest question, what I always wanted to know is about behind the scenes, what it was really like to be a state senator up in Rhode Island. But maybe we can talk about more issues. Are there any issues that
Well, there's always issues.
There's always issues.
There's always issues. There's always a lot going on up at the State House.
Yeah.
This year, it seems like there's a lot of push for the reproductive. It used to be Reproductive Health Care
Yes.
Act. It's now Reproductive Privacy Act. Passed the House, it's kind of stuck in the Senate right now.
Stuck.
Yeah, the Senate, even more so than the House, leans more anti-choice than the House, and so it's having a little bit of a harder time getting through there.
Yeah.
Kind of stuck, unfortunately. But I think they had a pretty good hearing, and hopefully it will get a vote fairly soon. Hopefully by the time this airs, it'll already have a vote.
Yeah.
That would be
I
nice.
hope so. Do you think if it gets out of committee into the state Senate that it would pass? Or,
I think it would pass. If it gets to the floor, I think it'll pass.
But the sticking point is the committee.
Yeah, it's really tough because I think it's kind of 4-4 right now in committee, for it, 4 against, and there's one on the fence. So it's a matter of getting the person that's on the fence to.
Do we know who the person is on the
We
fence?
do know who the person is. I think it's Senator Archambault right now.
Oh, wow. It is.
From Smithfield, so.
Yeah.
If anyone sees this and they haven't voted yet,
yes, it should be live
contact your
next week.
senator.
So
Yeah.
we can call Archambault. Yes.
So yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, countless people have spent so many hours up there doing postcards, the Women's Project, and others really trying to push that bill and get it through.
Yeah, honking waves and
Yeah.
hours at the State House. I know, I think it went to 2-3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I actually didn't go, but yeah, I mean, people are doing a lot and putting a lot of effort in.
And then there's obviously there's always a lot of bills going on. There's another push for fair pay that unfortunately got squashed on the last day of session.
What is that? So
is that it would make sure that there's equity in pay. I believe it includes a provision that your employer couldn't ask for your salary prior to getting, but it also ends discrimination against certain groups in terms of making sure that everyone's paid equally or fairly for the same work for the same job.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I always don't like. I don't know if people are aware. Obviously, when you look for a job, they'll ask you, "Well, what's your salary? What did you get for your last?" And that's supposed to determine. So if you're not making as much, they either know to pay you less, or they value you differently, and you don't get as high-paying jobs.
Right. And that typically does hurt people of color and women, because for whatever reason their salaries do not keep up as well as the typical white male. Especially like if a woman has had children and had to take some time off from work, it really puts them
And
behind.
then their last job was, a few years ago. Maybe they weren't making as much, but they.
Right.
Yes.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Hopefully that goes through this year.
That seems like such an easy thing.
You would think so.
But
yeah, the Senate passed it pretty early in the session, and then it was, I think it was the second to the last day in the House that it somehow got reworked, and it was really changed a lot and made. Some people say it changed the law so it would be worse than the 1950s. So yeah, It was pretty bad, and they passed that bad version, came back to the Senate, and then we just did not address it again because it was it was just not
too
good.
watered down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course there's always, the fight for 15, something that's close to my
Yes.
heart. Right now, even $15 an hour isn't enough.
No,
but
no, I don't think so either. That's my fear, is that if it gets to, by the time it gets to 15, it'll need to be much more.
Right.
Who knows? Yeah.
If you look at, and there's a lot of research on this, groups like, even here in Rhode Island, the Economic Progress group, they, it should be 21 to really, and if you think about it, 21, what's that, like $42,000
Yes.
a year? Even that is very difficult to live on. There was a rep, I think, in Congress that came out with a video just the other day to explain how difficult it was to live on $16.50
Yes.
and how they were $500 short every month, and trying to get a Chase executive to explain how someone was supposed to live on that.
Right, right. I always, like a lot of employers will say, there's a labor shortage or something like this, and I'm like, there is no labor shortage, you're just not paying enough.
Right. The problem is that, everyone talks about jobs, but people are working 2 and 3 jobs in order to live. And
Yes.
that's just not right. Everybody who's working a 40-hour week should be able to live on one job. One job is enough.
Yes.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. So there's always lots of things like
Yeah.
that. I know that there's some other things. The single payer legislation has been submitted again. That's another thing that was close to my
Yes.
heart. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that even though public opinion is for it, there's a lot of support. It's just very difficult to get the state to move on it, because you're up against an industry that is making lots of profit off of it.
Right,
So.
right. Well, I mean, I'm completely for it, but I guess there is, there's jobs in the insurance industry that would not be there, but I'm sure that it could be transferred.
Right. As part of the turnover, you could do some retraining and
it doesn't
some job
have to be-
placement. Right. I mean, most of the people that work in that industry, they have a lot of administrative and clerical skills, or business administration. So there's definitely other things that they could do. Yeah.
Right. So we can take a step back and ask how you got involved in politics. I sort of know, but if you want to talk about.
So I've always been following politics. I love history and things like that. But what really got me into it was in 2015 when Bernie Sanders announced that he was going to run. And actually even before that, because I was part of a group called Run, Warren, Run, and we were trying to get Elizabeth Warren to run, but then she kind of was like, no, I'm not doing it. And then when Bernie said that he was going to run, I was like, even better.
Right.
I've been following Bernie for years. And so I went up to Burlington to see his announcement, and ever since then has just been spending as much of my time as I could, during that election, working and starting the Rhode Island for Bernie Sanders group. Even today, I'm still part of that group.
Yeah, aren't you the director? What is it? You're not executive director, but you're the chair, or
I'm the chair of
You're the
our
chair.
Revolution Rhode Island
Yes.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So it's and now that he's announced for this year, I expect that that's going to take up a good chunk of my time.
Yeah.
Over the next until April of next year.
Sure. So the Rhode Island Progressive Democrats, I remember when they were trying to encourage Bernie to run, because before this he was an independent.
Right.
And then they said, please run as a Democrat. And he chose to run. And I remember thinking, he's great, but I don't know if he's going to do, it's going to be a niche campaign. And then he surprised everyone.
Yeah.
And how well did he do in Rhode Island? He
won by 12 points in Rhode Island, and where I'm from in Warwick, he won by 19 points.
So people love.
Yeah, they really
Bernie.
do, and you still see that even now. Why I ended up running was because part of Bernie's message was not me, us, that we all needed to do something. And I kept looking around at other people, like most people do, and
Yes.
why aren't you running? Why aren't you running? And then, you know, I think it was after his California speech, he said, you know, I want all of you to run. And that was
So
it.
there you go.
I said, all right, I'll do it. You know?
And you did it?
And I
and
did.
you won.
And, yep.
And you won.
Yeah. And it was really cool, too, because a lot of the doors that I knocked when we were knocking for Bernie remembered me. And,
Oh, yeah.
knowing that I had that same message, it resonated with the same people. So it was good.
Yeah. So how was it? How was it different than you imagined? I imagine you couldn't even.
Yeah, it was interesting for many reasons. I took it very seriously, so I decided that I was going to do it full time. So I would make sure I read every bill. I was prepared ahead of time. Like if we were going to be having a hearing on a particular issue, I'd try to do a little bit of research first. If the House already had their hearing, I'd go and watch the video of it, just so I know, because sometimes in the Senate you don't get the same people to come out and testify that you would in the House, and vice versa. So go and look at the testimony from their hearing, and just try to be as prepared as I could, and then especially when it came time to vote on things, to make sure that I knew exactly why I wanted to vote for something, try to get as much information as possible. So I also, you know, and it's what you make of it, right? I mean, not everybody has to do that or does that. You know, some people will, you know.
How many do you think do that? Half or less than? Or
I don't know. It's
you
hard
don't wanna
to say.
that.
It's hard to say.
Maybe some issues that they are interested in and some
Yeah,
are not.
I would think so, or bills that they're supporting, obviously. But yeah, and I was always happy to talk to anybody about any bill, like if I knew something that somebody else, and vice versa, because you know, even trying to do research on some of the bills, it can be very hard. You don't know, especially if it's out of your area of expertise.
Now, I know that there's the Senate president. Now, does he assign staff? Like, do people like you, a new senator, do you not get as much staff, and then other people get more staff to help you?
So,
or is that...
as a new senator, you do get an admin or a secretary that you share usually with other senators. But the Senate has staff, so they have a legislative services department where, you know, a lot of people think, well, I can't run because I don't know how to write bills or anything like that. Well, I try to tell people you don't need to know how to write a bill. I mean, if you do, that's wonderful. But even if you don't know the sections of law, what you could do is have a good idea and have some bullet points of what you want the bill to do. You go to Leg Services and you tell them, hey, I'd like a bill that does this. This is what I want it to do. And they have it written up and they give it back to you.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to be proficient on writing legislation, which is good. And a lot of people don't know that, and it could be a factor that prevents them from getting involved.
It's true. True.
Yeah, so there's staff that do that and other staff that can help you. Each of the committees, too, have some really knowledgeable policy people. So if you don't know about something and you're not finding research, you can go and talk to them, and they can kind of give you their you know, feedback on a certain bill, or so there's people to help.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I want to encourage anyone to run for office. There are many groups in Rhode Island that you can contact that can help you, lead you to the right person. I just want to say that because I ran for office as well, and I came to the same. When I ran for office, it was because who else is going to do it? Right. So you just say, well, I guess it's me. Right. And especially with women, there's this thing people say that it takes, you know, you ask a man once to run for office and they go, maybe I should. But with women, you have to ask like 7 times. That's right. Yeah. So it's a little bit harder to encourage women. Hopefully that's changing because more women are running and getting elected. So, and I think that encourages other. But I encourage anybody who's really strong on the issues, who wants to try to make a difference, and you know, has some good ideas, and is really encouraged to do it, to actually do it. Yeah. I was. Let's see. But you were talking about some of the things that are surprising. I didn't realize, like, I guess you see from the outside, like if you watched, especially in the last week of session, how quickly things happen up there.
it was when we've talked about this in the past, it really is kind of surprising. Like once the rules are suspended, it's kind of like a no holds barred. So
when does that happen? Like a week before?
I think it might be the last 2 weeks of session. But it does kind of make it very difficult because, like I said, I like to be prepared. So if there's a list of bills, I used to be up sometimes very late into the early morning to try to make sure that I knew what I was voting on and what I wanted to vote yes or no on. But during the end of session, something might come over from the House. It might not go to the right committee because the other committees might be done. Like there were bills that maybe should have gone to Health and Human Services, which I was on, but went to Judiciary because they were the only ones that were still hearing bills. And then they'd go right to the floor the same day. So it's like there's no time to prep anything.
Yeah.
So, there might be 50 bills listed, and then you're going through the 50 bills and you're like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing on these. But then they'd add a whole bunch of bills to the bottom that were just coming through, and it might be the first time you've seen the bill. So there's no time to, barely read it, never mind do research, and you're expected to vote on it. And I think that's broken.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think that people are trying to sneak bills through
at the last
minute, and I'm sure someone knows what those bills are.
I'm sure someone knows what those bills are. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can talk about Bernie a little bit.
Okay.
Bernie is the Democratic frontrunner, whether the media wants to know that or not.
The corporate media, yeah.
Yes.
The corporate media and some in the Democratic Party, unfortunately.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So the last 2 days, I don't know about today, last 2 days in New York Times, there were like articles about how they're getting together and trying to stop Bernie, and it just makes me question, why are they trying to push down excitement for a candidate? You would think that you would try to increase excitement, like take the excitement that's there and help it go forward to run against.
Well, I'll tell
current.
you, I think they're afraid, right? Bernie can't be bought. And that's a very scary thing.
Yeah.
Even here in Rhode Island, to see how much influence the lobbyists have is really scary. To see how bills can change because certain lobbyist groups want to have input into the bills. Now they're even helping write legislation, which is very scary. We should all be afraid when it's the petroleum industry or whoever is writing legislation.
Yes.
But for Bernie, he can't be bought. So I think that there are a lot of people who are afraid on what that could mean if he were to get elected. Now, it's funny that you say that because I was a delegate to the 2016 Democratic National Convention, and we happened to be placed in an area that was right up against a velvet roped section. And we were told that we couldn't go in there, and it was for the donors, and the very large donors. And I tell this story to people, and I'm sure some people are not going to like that I say it, but there was one person who was sitting behind me that, because we were all Bernie supporters, we would cheer on Bernie, and they said, well, it doesn't matter who's on that stage because we determine, what's going to happen. And it was just very shocking to hear somebody out in the open basically say, that they, I don't know if you want to say they basically pay for what these people do. It was very shocking to me at the time. And that was another factor that went, into me trying to really make a difference and encourage other people who don't want to be paid off to run and get involved.
Yeah.
Not that, and I can't say that, our current elected officials are paid off in any way. I'm just saying it doesn't help when, you have these groups that are making contributions to political candidates' personally, I feel we should take money out of politics and have public funded elections. I think it would help out
regular
a lot.
people
So regular
can
people
actually
can run, right.
run.
And because then there's no question of there being any kind of influence.
Yes, yes. There's so many lawyers up there and real estate agents. There's very few people that are like you. I know there's a nurse.
There's some teachers.
There's some teachers. It's very, it's mostly lawyers. But I don't think it's because, I think it's because they have the time too.
Yeah, in Rhode Island, I've heard a lot of people talk about how, it is very time consuming to run for office. But even when you get there, the pay is about $15,000 a year. Session is from 4 to whenever. It's not the easiest thing for working people to do. You have to have a schedule that you can probably get out of work by 3. Most people don't have that, and so forth. So
it's kind of well, it's the thing is that it would be better if we had a full-time, full-paid legislators.
Yeah, if you could live on the salary.
But the thing is that I know in Rhode Island people are like, oh, that's the last thing they want to do is give them more money.
Right.
But the truth is, how are you supposed to make a living in this?
And a lot of the times, like, because a bill has to be introduced every single year, because our session runs from January to May or June, at the end of the session, that's it. And then you have to start all over again. If we were year-round or full-time, then it would be very different. You could just continue. You wouldn't have to do a lot of rework, have the same hearings all over again. You'd have efficiencies there, but I think it also causes an issue because then there is this big push at the end to try to get everything done when, if it was done properly,
Yeah, it feels like it's more democratic and just a better process, but at the same time, because it's not that way now, people don't want to make it more fair. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the Stop and Shop strike.
Yeah. It's amazing the amount of support, which I'm very happy about. Yeah, I spent a little bit of time at the one down near me in Warwick and talking to the folks there, and they were saying that Stop and Shop wants to raise their deductible to $12,000 a year. And to me, that's ridiculous.
That's like not having health care,
that's
basically.
Like exactly. It's like not having health care. If something happens, all that money comes out of your pocket. And he was saying, like, who has $12,000 sitting around that, they can just pay out of pocket until their insurance kicks in?
Yeah.
So, but it has been amazing. I think the whole time I was there, I think 3 people walked into the store.
Good.
And one of them was for the pharmacy, so you can kind of understand that. But yeah, and I hear, sometimes you got to hit these large corporations in the pocketbook in order for them to take notice.
Yeah. I hope that they continue. I know that it must be hard the more time goes by without a paycheck. And I love that I usually go to Stop and Shop, and now I'm not, so I can, stick it to them.
Same.
Yeah, I know. It's like, nope, not going. But yeah, I hope, because there was a lot of sort of excitement and support this past weekend, but I hope it continues. I encourage everyone to help support them, go to the picket line, bring them coffee, bring them food, because it must, imagine the power that Stop and Shop has. I think they can hold out for quite a while.
Yeah.
And they're just twiddling their thumbs saying, when are the workers going to end up?
Hopefully they don't. Hopefully because, it's a holiday weekend.
I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah, they could be losing a lot. So hopefully by the time this year's, it'll be over. But yeah, I encourage everybody to, just spend, even if it's half an hour, just, stand up with your neighbors, and join them, on the picket line, and make sure you don't go to Stop and Shop if nothing else.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's see. What other things are going on in Rhode Island? There's always so much.
If you want to get back to Bernie, I think a lot of us who are going to be organizing sooner rather than later, because there are a lot more candidates in the race this time. Yes. It's going to be a different kind of campaign, because before it was pretty much Bernie and Hillary, and now this time it's Bernie
and 12
Elizabeth
other
Warren,
people.
Kamala Harris, et cetera. So, and there's going to be a lot of attack on him because he is the front runner.
Yeah.
So, but here in Rhode Island, there's lots of things that people can do. I know with our revolution, we're going to be doing some visibility events. Like we'll be doing, probably if anyone drove on 195 in 2016, they probably saw a light brigade. So we'll be doing things like that. We'll be doing some canvassing probably fairly soon in some key areas of the state. So if they want to get involved, just reach out. But we want to make sure that people all across the state are represented. So especially in areas like Central Falls or Pawtucket, or even in the western part of the state, that we're hearing from everybody, and everybody is welcome to join. And
do you think that people are going to vote? It's in Rhode Island, we can switch. They can switch right before the primary. They can say that they're Republicans, if you're unaffiliated, and then they unaffiliate, which is the most of the people, the voters, I believe, are unaffiliated until they.
Yeah, Rhode Island, I think, has a majority unaffiliated. Unaffiliated, yeah. Especially in like, I know Warwick, it's by a large margin, but if you're unaffiliated, you can show up and vote in the primary. You just would declare, like let's say you wanted to vote for Bernie, you would go tell them you want to vote as a Democrat, then you would vote, and then you would undeclare on the way out. If you're registered as a Republican, though, I think it's 30 days ahead of time. You would have to switch. Yeah. So there is a bill, I'm not sure if it's the Secretary of State's bill, but there's one that says anyone who's unaffiliated can vote and then be automatically made unaffiliated again, so that they wouldn't have to fill out a form. Yeah. But that hasn't passed yet, so.
I think people are sometimes concerned about doing that, but I guess most people in Rhode Island are okay with it because most of them are unaffiliated.
Yeah.
But then again, a lot of people probably don't vote in the primaries, because that's the truth.
Yeah, the presidential primaries do very well. We also need to make sure, like, if you care about progressive issues, though, to support progressive candidates in 2020, because we need to. Obviously, when we talk about, like, even the Reproductive Privacy Act, it would be much easier to pass if there were a lot more progressives up there.
Yes.
We wouldn't have to be worried about it being a 4-4 split right now in judiciary.
Right.
So, yeah, if we can get more people to run.
We'd actually a blue state. All these people in other
I always
states.
I tell people we're the reddest blue state in the nation, because it's true. Even though we're Democrats, we have a big tent.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard.
That's what they say.
Yeah, there's a lot of more conservative Democrats here in Rhode Island.
And now, are you a member of the state party? No.
Anymore? No, the Democratic State Committee, no.
But you were there when they voted for Joe McNamara? Yeah, that was funny. I got an email that says thank you from Joe Mac.
I got that too, yeah.
I was like, I don't know about that. Thank you.
Even people, like, there's little things that there's so many positions and a lot of people don't know about it. So like the Democratic State Committee, there's wards of your local Democrats, that people should join. Each senator and each representative has a district committee, which you are part of.
Yes, and I don't think people know about this at all.
No, I don't think they do, but they have a lot of power. So, and you probably know there was a big issue with endorsements.
Yes, well, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. We're just supposed to talk now.
Oh, we're supposed to talk.
Yeah.